Hello everyone, hope you're all having a wonderful day, and today I'm going to be doing an updated guide on my Frostbitten Rogue build that I did do about 2 or 3 weeks ago, because a lot has actually changed. And when I actually did that build, I was like 76 or something, and I was only doing like tier 38 or 40 nightmare dungeons, which isn't really that difficult at all. I feel like Endgame truly begins when you hit 50 plus nightmare dungeon. So I thought I would just do a little quick update on the actual build itself. But what this build is essentially able to do is we're able to freeze enemies almost instantly, pretty much instantly. We also have a lot of other crowd control at our disposal. We're able to knock down enemies, we're able to daze, we're able to stun, we're able to chill. So honestly, this rogue has a fat toolkit when it comes to crowd control. And this build is also very versatile. There's plenty of ways that you can actually set this up. Loads of different aspects you can play around with, and some different skills that you can actually use as well. And I know right now I am using Twisted Blades, but Flurry is a very viable option for this build. In fact, it's actually probably much better for AoE. So if you are someone that wants to clear mobs quicker, Flurry is good, but obviously Twisted Blades just does some insane damage, and it is pretty much better for just about everything. And I mean, you're going to get a much quicker boss kill with Twisted Blades than you are Flurry. Now, I'm not going to bore you guys by going over the skills again. I will leave a link to my Frostbitten Rogue build in the description below. Go and check that out. I explain the skills in much more depth. We are obviously taking Puncture. Puncture is just OP for every Rogue build at the moment. Now, we are taking Twisted Blades because Twisting Blades is arguably one of the strongest core abilities the Rogue has. We are taking Shadow Step so we can get out of CC and also have 100% lucky hit chance. We are taking Caltrops because we have a lot of synergy with our aspects that revolves around Caltrop, and Caltrops is pretty underrated really. Obviously we're taking Cold Imbuement so we can apply Chill, and we are taking Shadow Imbuement so we can get big AoE damage. Again, I'm not going to go over the skill tree in depth. Go and check out my first video because not a lot has changed. Everything's the same, bar some aspects that I have like switched around because they work a lot better than what I had before. But to also save you going to another video, I will just still quickly show you the skill tree, but I'm not going to really explain why I'm taking everything. So obviously we're taking Puncture, Enhanced Puncture, Fundamental Puncture. We're putting 5 points into Twisting Blades. I do have 3 other points from my gear slots, mainly my gloves. We are taking Enhanced Twisting Blades, and we're also taking Improved Twisting Blades. Again, we're taking Shadow Step, we're taking Enhanced Shadow Step, we're taking Methodical Shadow Step. We got Caltrops, we got Enhanced Caltrops, and we also have Methodical Caltrop. Methodical Caltrop is another skill that we do need for this build. A lot of our aspect synergy revolves around our Caltrops being able to chill enemies now. We are maxing out Sturdy, more damage reduction, and we are maxing out Siphoning Strikes, arguably one of the best passives the rogues have for survivability. We got 2 points into Rapid Gambit, we got 2 points in Rapid Gambits, we have 2 points into Tri Attacks, and we also have 1 point into Concussive. And just quickly, the reason why we're taking all this is we are obviously dazing enemies with our Twisting Blade. So when we daze enemies with Twisting Blades, we refresh our evade cooldown. We're going to be evading all the time. And when we critically strike dazed enemy, they get knocked down. When the enemies get knocked down, we gain increased critical strike chance against them. We're skipping all the subterfuge section, not using that. Do not care about it. We are moving straight over to the imbuement. And we are obviously taking Shadow, we're taking Enhanced Shadow Imbuement, and we are taking Blended Shadow Imbuement. This is really good. Primary Explosion from Shadow Imbuement is going to make enemies vulnerable. And we are putting 1 point into Shadow Crash. Shadow Crash is alright, but the main reason we're doing this is so we can put 2 points into Consuming Shadows. So whenever time we kill an enemy affected by shadow damage, we get 20 energy, which is just huge. We're going to have lots of burst potential. We've got Cold Imbuement, and then we are taking Enhanced Cold Imbuement. We're taking Mixed Cold Imbuement. We are maxing out Frigid Finesse, and we also have another 3 points from our Necklace, which give us 6 points, which is absolutely insane. We are maxing out Precision Imbuement, and I also forgot that we are also maxing out Weapon Mastery as well. Moving on over to the Ultimate section, we're not taking any of the Ultimate skills, but we are maxing out Adrenaline Rush, and we're also maxing out Haste. And then for the key passive, we are taking Close Quarter Combat. It works really, really well with this build. I suppose if you want more survivability, you could also take Momentum. And because we are prioritizing a lot of crowd control, getting that 30% increased damage is very nice. Moving on over to the specializations, we are taking Combo Points. I personally like Combo Points a little bit more. I'll explain more when I get over into my gear. Inner Sight, hands down though, is the best for bossing because you're just easily going to be able to build up those Inner Sight stacks, and then you will get infinite energy for 4 seconds. So really, really good for bossing. but I feel like combo points is just a little bit better for mobbing because you're able to just get a bit more damage out and more AoE potential. Just before we get into my actual gear and all the aspects that I am taking, I am going to go over my stats quickly. So strength, we do have 337. Intelligence, we do have 566. This does contribute to our critical strike chance, or some of it at least. I do have 256 in willpower, and our big daddy dexterity, we have 887 in here, which does contribute to 88.8% of our skill damage, and a nice 9% of our dodge chance as well. We have a bit of attack speed bonus. We have 12.6 attack speed bonus. I have 36% critical strike chance, which means that with the frostbitten aspect, when a grenade skill hits a chilled enemy, we have a 74% chance that enemy is going to be frozen, which is a really high fucking chance for that enemy to be frozen. Oh my god. And because we have pretty decent critical strike chance, we are taking 288.5 critical strike damage. And don't skimp out on critical strike damage with Imbue, because this stacks on top of your critical strike damage. So when we critically strike with Imbue skills, we actually do more critically strike damage than we do without the imbuements on them. We have a whopping 333.5% vulnerable damage. Now just a quick tip, when you are trying to upgrade your weapons, you always want vulnerable and critical strike damage on your weapons. I cannot emphasize that enough. So you can see here, I've got vulnerable, crit, core, another really good one to take, and dexterity. That is basically more core skill damage. I got, look, and then on my sword, I have crit with Imbue, vulnerable, more crit damage. That is a fat sword. And then this sword, I have critical strike damage, core, vulnerable, and damage to dazed enemies. So if you prioritize a lot of crit and a lot of vulnerable damage, you will see your damage increase. I'm telling you. And the other things I'd like to point out as well is we do have 206.8% damage to crowd control enemies. Very nice, because this is going to multiply with vulnerable damage and the critical strike damage. Now moving on over to the gear, guys, I will still go over all the aspects I'm taking just to save you like a lot of time on watching 2 videos and trying to absorb all this information. But I will start with the aspects that I have changed from the last build. Now I have taken off Ravager's aspect. I did have this on my boots, which is where you get like an additional charge with Shadow Step, which is I'm really missing. This is really good. You're going to get an extra unstoppable proc with Shadow Step, and you can refund a charge when you kill an enemy, which kind of makes you use Shadow Step just a little bit more. So I am missing this a little bit, but Shared Misery, man, oh my god. You guys, a lot of you guys in the comment section did say, yo dude, you need to try out Shared Misery, especially if you're using the Frostbitten aspect and freezing enemies, because you are going to share all that frost status effect with everybody else, which is just insane. Now, if you're unsure what does count as crowd control, you can go over to the damage versus crowd control and it lists everything here for you. So if you're doing any of this, you're all good, mate. Now, the other one I did change out is I took out the expectant. And the main reason for that is on my boots, I'm very lucky and I got a max roll of energy cost reduction. And I also got energy cost reduction on my amulet. So we have 26% energy cost reduction. So instead of twisting blades costing 30 energy, they now cost 22 energy. So I found with the shadow imbuement, like exploding and giving us energy back, and in our Paragon board, we do have the glyph that when we are critically striking, we're getting 12% of that energy back. So as long as we're critting and as long as we're using shadow imbuement, we're able to refill our energy very quickly, almost keep it full all the time. But I didn't find I was always getting this damage increase. So what I did switch it out for is Icy Alchemist. And what Icy Alchemist lets us do is whenever we use Shadow Imbuement and we hit a chilled or a frozen enemy, it does an Ice Nova, damaging all enemies nearby for 1100 damage and chilling them for 15%. Now, this kind of creates a crazy chain reaction because the shadow is going to hit the enemy next to it, and that guy's going to die from shadow. It's going to hit the next enemy, that guy's going to die from shadow. All at the same time, now they're exploding with cold damage. So you're going to freeze enemies a lot quicker this way. You're also going to get crazy like double explosions where the shadows explode, the frost hits the shadow, and that just continuously keeps popping. Because if you guys didn't know, Shadow Imbuement does have a lucky hit chance of 33%. So your Shadow Imbuement explosion can proc Shared Misery, and it can also keep re-procking your Icy Alchemist, which is just insane. You can just continuously keep going off between enemies until they eventually die. So those are the two things I have changed. I obviously put Icy Alchemist on, has much more synergy. We're able to chill enemies and freeze enemies that aren't even near us, and we can get those continuing chain explosions happening, which are really, really nice to see. It's kind of nuts as well. So those are the two things I have changed. Everything else is pretty much the same. We still have the disobedience aspect. We still have the might aspect. Still running edge masters on my hands. Now, one thing I can say about your gloves though is this would have been a fantastic set of gloves if I could have gotten the 4 ranks of twisting blades. I did roll a little bit low, but the main things you want to look for on your gloves is max critical strike chance, max attack speed. I'm not sure if intelligence is good there. Maybe you could try and go for like critical strike damage after killing elites or some other kind of damage multiplier. Maybe dexterity would be better. This is kind of what you want to look for your gloves for Rogue. A critical strike chance, attack speed, and twisting ranks of twisting blade or flurry or whatever you're taking is the go-to. It's like the best in slot you can get, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong about that. Maybe some other people have some preferences, but I feel like I see a lot of people using this kind of setup on their gloves. Legs, I still have the cheat aspect here, which works a lot better now. We are using Icy Alchemist. We can, you know, get chill and frozen procs out a lot more. And also with the shared misery, we can get lucky hits and we can spread crowd control. So nearly every enemy can get crowd control, which I feel like the cheat aspect is now working a lot better than what it was before. For our bow, I am still taking Blade Dancers. Now, the one thing I do want to try though is I might switch Retribution and the Blade Dancers around and see if it does give more damage, or I might put it through a damage calculator and see if it will do more damage. We're not really getting the full potential out of this aspect, which is where we move the furthest away. We can get up to a 60% damage increase on our Twisting Blade damage. We can, but we're not really. So I wonder if Retribution might actually be better here. But for now, I am still using it this way, but feel free to switch these two around, the Retribution and this one. Obviously, I got Retribution on sword. It does give us a 36 times increased damage to stunned enemies. And it's because we are taking the surprise aspect. Whenever we evade or shadow step, we do drop stun grenades. And also the trickster aspect is going to be dropping stun grenades when we use caltrop. So we can apply stun quite often. And I have mentioned the frostbitten aspect, but obviously we do have the frostbitten aspect on the amulet. And another good thing with the amulet, another good thing that I can recommend with trying to get on your bits of gear is because we are using 2 imbuement, I have gone heavy into imbuement skill cooldown. I've got it there, and also on my head I do have like cooldown reduction, but it is really good because that applies to everything. But because we're not using poison trap and we're not getting that 30% chance to reset our imbuement, which is really good, I have gone with more cooldown reduction. So our imbuments are only on an 8-second cooldown. So there's not very many times in a dungeon where we won't have our blades imbued by some element. I know I did cover the Paragon board in the last video, but I was nowhere near as completed as I am now. So I will still go over it again. So I do apologize if this is just repeated information for some of you guys, but I am still just going to go over it again. Now for my first glyph, I am taking the control glyph. Now this is going to give us massive damage increase to controlled enemies. We're always going to be CCing. And then the bonus is really nice. We deal 10% increased damage to slowed or chilled enemies. We're always slowing, always chilling enemies. And it says, or instead, we get 20 times increased damage to stunned or frozen enemies. We are stunning and we are always freezing enemies. So I feel like the control glyph works really, really well for this build. I'm not really sure what else I would actually take. We did pick up the Lawless, we're getting more armor. We did pick up Skillful, giving us more damage. Kind of filled out all around the Skillful. I will probably come through and at least grab the magic node here just to get all the armor I can. Now the next glyph I have got Closer. Now this is going to give us a damage increase to our Cutthroat skill. Since we're a melee rogue, I think it's obvious we're going to want to take increases to our Cutthroat abilities. And the bonus is really nice. While wielding a melee weapon, you take 10% reduced damage. I'm not sure if does this stack because we have 2 melee weapons, or is it just why we have like a melee weapon out, we get the 10% damage reduction. Either way, this bonus is great for survivability. Now we are taking the focus node. We're getting an increased damage to elites. We are taking this because it gives us plus 10 to dexterity, which is working with the glyph. Same reason why we went down here, got Lawless. Lawless is really good, more armor. Again, more dex for the glyph. I've gone over to get Havoc because this is a critical strike damage increase, which is very, very nice. And then the legendary node, I did get Tricks of the Trade. Whenever we use a marksman skill, increases our Cutthroat skill and vice versa. And we're doing this all the time because we are using puncture and also are twisting blades. Moving on over to the next board, we are taking the cheap shot board. Now this is going to give us a 5 times increased damage for each nearby enemy that is crowd control. We're going to be crowd controlling a lot of enemies, so this bonus is almost active all the time. The glyph we are taking is we are taking combat, which is going to give us an increased critical strike damage with our core skills, and the bonus is what gives us insane energy regen, and that is skills that critically strike restore 12% of their energy cost. This paired with shadow imbuement, you will never run out of energy, and you can continuously spamming twisting blades as if you had an inner sight proc. This glyph is really solid. We did take the devious node, giving us increase to crowd control, huge. And we're also taking wilds, which is going to give us damage reduction from slowed enemies. We are able to slow enemies with caltrop and our puncture, so this is going to give us good damage reduction whenever we use those skills. I did go up the top and I did get spearhead, which is going to get more damage to healthy enemies, and I did also head over to the safeguard node because I wanted more damage reduction from elite. More damage reduction equals more survivability, baby. Now my last board is the exploit weakness board, and I haven't even taken this legendary node. I'm eager to get this, and it is going to make us deal more damage to vulnerable enemies, up to 15 times for 6 seconds. This is going to be really solid. I feel like this build already does very respectable damage, so I can't imagine what 15 times is actually going to do. Now my last glyph is the chip glyph, and this is just going to give us an increase to our physical damage, and the bonus is that enemies are going to take increased physical damage from us up to 10 times for 15 seconds. This is just really good. It's basically exactly the same as the exploit weakness legendary node, except this is for vulnerable, and this is just for physical damage. So it's really good just to ramp our damage up a little bit, especially for single target. I did come over and take the artifice node. Going to give us more vulnerable damage, and also because the dex is going to go with the glyph. Same reason for this. I don't really care about potion healing, I suppose. It's nice. Main reason we're taking this is because of the dexterity for the glyph. I have gone over and got the exploit node, more vulnerable damage, which is fantastic. I've gotten more damage reduction, but this time from vulnerable enemies. And like I said, I really want to make my way over and get this legendary node. Nearly there, only 3 more points. Now I'm kind of debating on where to go with my last couple of points, but I feel like I'm going to come down here and get more damage to crowd controlled enemies. I think we can get up to like 50% damage to crowd control enemies if we take the rare node plus all the magic nodes near it, which is just going to be insane. Then we can get another 50% increased damage to crowd control targets. I don't even want to think about how much damage we could actually do to frozen enemies with this. And that would pretty much wrap up the board. I honestly don't know how many points we would have left over. Probably not a lot. I'd probably go in and fill up just some of these armor sections that I haven't gotten. I have another one here that I haven't actually filled out. But that is pretty much my Paragon board in a nutshell. Now hopefully I didn't bore you guys to death. Hopefully you guys aren't just like sleeping in your chair like while you're listening to this stupid Australian man try and talk about his rogue build. Now I would like to just give my closing thoughts on the actual build though. Now I am just starting to push into tier 60, and I am doing it, but it is definitely a sweat fest. I really have to focus and try and make sure I don't get hit by anything, because the rogue is extremely squishy, especially for a melee class and with all the armor and damage reduction we are taking. We don't have fortified health like druids and barbarians. I think even necros might get fortified health. I might be wrong there. But either way, we don't have like fortified health like some of the other melee builds do. And it does make the rogue extremely squishy. So I have tried to counterbalance that with a lot of the crowd control. But I am curious to see how far this build could go. I don't think it's a tier 100 build, I'll be completely honest. I don't even think it's a tier 80 build. I am curious to see if it does sit in between the tier 70 and the tier 80 kind of region, because I can still get a lot of damage out of this build, and it is starting to perform really well in the higher nightmare dungeons, as long as you just take your time, take it slow. You can't just go rushing into mobs, because you will just get one shot and shut down instantly. But that is basically it from me, guys. Hopefully you guys do enjoy this build. I am going to try out one more thing with the rogue. I do actually have another build that I haven't seen too many people use, and it either means nobody's thought of it or it's complete utter dog shit. I appreciate all the love and support as always, guys, and until next time, stay safe. Peace out.